Hello, my name is Daniel Burgess. Welcome to Tales from the Cryptographers. Today I'm going to be talking about triangular numbers, the phenomenon of triangular numbers in Genesis 1. This is meant to be a brief presentation, and I just want to familiarize the audience with what's actually in the literature. And it's definitely a phenomenon. This stuff's amazing. The first verse of Genesis reflects the whole nature of Torah, and it was intended to be a vessel for God's Spirit. And the way that they wrote the words on the scroll reflect that. And there was a lot of ideas that the sulfurs who inscribed the scrolls had. They left their mark on the text. These people's belief systems it's like from another planet almost. It's like the story says, like somebody was talking to God, and that's how they were able to make the stories do the things that they do. People could have done it, it's hard to say. I don't want to say yay or nay or tell you what to believe. That's why I'm sharing all of this, so you can think for yourself and decide for yourself. But there was 7,000 ways to spell a word in Hebrew, so I think people, could have pulled it off. But that's neither here nor there, and it doesn't make it any less amazing. Like, everybody else is going to tell you that God did this, and God, and you should be so impressed that you should submit your whole life to it. That's pretty wild to me. But anyways, y'all have to search after your own hearts and find this out for yourselves. But the first verse of Genesis begins with the letter B. And the letter B is the number 2 in Gematria. In most ciphers, it's the number 2. But the Sophers put the gesh in the B, and that's the dot in the palace. And the dot can represent 1, and the dot can represent 10. So the dot representing 1 makes the 1 inside of the 2, which makes 3, which makes the first letter 1, 2, 3. And the very beginning of the scroll is the mouth of the scroll, where the spirit can enter the body of the scroll and possess it, just like it's going to do to you. But so 1, 2, 3 is the first triangular number. Like every polygon number and every polyhedra number is number 1 is the first version of all of them, and that reflects the idea of everything being 1 in the source before it's differentiated by manifesting in our dimension, which it might be a mouthful, but that's exactly what all of this stuff is about. But so the first verse of Genesis is 7 words and 28 letters, which is 7 times 4. And the 7th triangular number, so I showed you the first triangular number is 3 dots, 1 above 2. So if you keep counting, 3 would be underneath 2, 4 would be underneath 3, and on and on. And every number will make this mountain of integers. And so the 7 being 28 is the 7th triangular number, is 28 units, is what I'm trying to say. And that's amazing, it's absolutely amazing. You'll see the slide here on the... Sorry, I'm trying to make sure I tell you right. On the left, I have a triangular pyramid numbered. 1 is 1, and then 2 is 2 number 2s, and then underneath it is 3 number 3s. So to demonstrate the idea. And on the... Dang, I think I still said it wrong. No, it should be... Yeah, and so on the right side where it says T7 equals 28, I've just numbered it linearly to where you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you can see that it's 28 units. Sorry, I've been wanting to try to tell you these things and kind of explain the slides in a little more detail so you can understand what you're looking at. In the middle of the slide, I have the first verse of Genesis in the form of the 7th triangular number. so you can see it. And I numbered 1 through 7 across the bottom. Every edge of a triangular number will be the triangular number it represents. So every edge of this triangle is 7 letters, the one in the middle here, if you can see that. And so 7 and 28 is like the most obvious triangular number in Genesis. And anybody can like become aware of that. Oh, hey, the first verse, it's 7 words and 28 letters. Ha ha, the 7th triangular number is 28. Well, that's interesting. And not everybody would know anything about Gematria or the letter B, but that representing the first triangular number after 1 is also like pretty significant. But so if you take the absolute value of the first verse of Genesis, the whole verse, what I mean by absolute value is a craft called Gematria. I explained that in some of my other presentations if you want to know what it is, but it's Hebrew alphanumerics, and the standard form of Hebrew alphanumerics, where most everybody begins, it's where you should begin, is called the absolute value, or the mispar hikrachi, which hikrachi is a word that goes back to strength, if I recall. But it's the absolute form. It's a literary reference. Or no, I'm not saying that right. But when you study Hebrew grammar, the basic form of a word when it's not modified to be in a sentence, like that's the absolute form of the word. So that's where the term absolute value comes from. And the absolute value of the alphabet isn't ordinal. That's a different cipher, and you can use the ordinal cipher, but the tradition is the absolute value. And the absolute value rises by powers of 10. And there's a lot of reasons for all of this. But so the first 10 letters are 1 through 10, and then instead of going to 11, it goes 20, 30, 40. When you get to 100, it goes 200, 300, 400, and it stops at 400 because the alphabet is 22 letters. But so if you take the value of each one of these letters and calculate the whole verse's value, which I'm not going to write the letters out because it'll take too much time, but this is the word beginning, the beginning. So it equals 913. First letter's 2, second letter's 200, third letter's 1. The fourth letter is 300, fifth letter is 10, sixth letter is 400, totaling at 913. But so create is 203, Elohim is 86. There's not enough room to write all the words. I skipped the word here in the middle. I'm sorry about that. I didn't want to be writing the alphabet out. I skipped the first and last letter of the alphabet. Shame on me. Just gonna write them in for you right here. Which it has a value of 401. And then the heavens is 395. And then the next conjunction is 407 because it has an extra letter. It's the same word, but it has an extra letter here at the beginning, modifying its placement. Which, I've never actually looked up why they added evolve to it. I should probably look that up. But anyways, and then the last word here is the earth, and it's 296. And so when you add all 7 of these words up together, it equals 2,701. And 2,701 is an amazing number. It's the 73rd triangular number. So we call that T73 for short. But this stuff's amazing, y'all. The 73rd triangular number, I'll just show you it before I show you the big slide. But so if you built this out of units, 2,701, if you built it out of dots, one dot above 2 dots above 3 dots, all the way out to 73, the midpoint of each one of these faces here will be 37 units long, creating the 37th triangular number. And it'll be surrounded on 3 sides by triangular number 36, because this edge of this central triangle is 37 units. So moving back down towards the 1 from there, the next row will be 36, if that makes sense to you. But so T36, T36, and T37 in the middle. T37 is 703 units. And these 2 last words here, if you add them up together, 407 plus 296 equals 703. And if you take these first 5 words here, they'll equal 1998. And 1998 is 666 times 3. So the blueprint of the triangular number that the absolute value represents is demonstrated in the actual value of the 7 words. The first 5 words tells you 666 times 3. Well, that's a geographical feature of the 73rd triangular number. And the last 2 words are 703. Well, that's a geographical feature of the 73rd triangular number. That's freaky, y'all. That's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. But here's the picture with all the units of 2,701 built of actual units. And so you can see the blue triangles are labeled T36, like I just showed you. And but each outer edge of triangular number 73 is 73 units. And so you can actually see that demonstrated here. I've got a scale at the bottom numbering it, and that scale is really important. 1 through 73, it's the same. I don't want to get into the geometry aspect of it, but it's a 73 divided at the midpoint is 37, and 37 divided at the midpoint is 19. If you take the word wisdom, the absolute value is 73. The ordinal value is 37, and the mispar katan is the lesser value, a lesser numbering. I'm not going to get into that, but it equals 19. And so this scale is represented by the word wisdom. Like they're trying to tell you something here, y'all. Like wisdom was in the beginning with God. It says that in the Bible. And this scale is generated by the first verse of Genesis. It's also being signified by the word wisdom itself, which Chokmah is the word. And that in the Chabad reckoning of the Sephirot, Chokmah is the gate and the beginning of the Sephirot. And there's a lot of good reasons for that. And this stuff's amazing. But I wanted to, showing y'all that, I built this triangular number on GeoGebra, just so y'all know how I'm doing this. But the 73rd triangular number, if you add 2,701 to its mirrored opposite, like reversing the order of those digits to 1,072, you get 3,773 or 3773. Coincidentally, it's amazing. These are the only numbers that do this, But 37 and 73 are geographical features of the 73rd triangular number. And it's just... there's no end to this stuff. This stuff gets really deep. I'm not going to get too much into it because I feel like it would drive me crazy trying to tell y'all all the fun facts about those numbers and all the crazy things they can do. But it can do a lot. But what is it? What's going on here is that the The 3-7, that's the Sephirot, and this triangle represents the gate of being. And basically, this is an image, which it's a form of the first verse of Genesis, which is supposed to be a gate for God's Spirit to enter the scroll. Well, when you understand this, it creates this gate in your mind, in your skull. This is the only place this stuff actually exists. We put it in a vessel outside of our body, like into the body of the Torah, but relatively, like, it's alive, like, with us and through us, but the 3-7, the 3 is the gate of the mind, and the 7 is the body it animates and generates. And so the 3-7, in the middle of this triangular number, the 37th triangular number in the center of the 73rd, that's the house of God, and it's on these waters of chaos. And what these waters of chaos represent is the primordial sea, before anything existed, where it's all one. So everything and nothing exists in that state. And this gate is going to create an ark or a house for the Lord to have beingness in that place that is otherwise not, in what you otherwise cannot live. And so in this way, the 666 represents the waters. And I believe that's exactly why the first 5 words gives you 666 times 3, because the primordial waters come first. And the house of the Lord is the ark built in the abyss, from the abyss. And this is the vessel for consciousness to stay alive in the chaotic waters. That's how I understand this stuff anyways. But the next verse, where it says, the Spirit of God moved upon the surface of the waters, that phrase right there, which it's not the whole second verse, but that verse right there equals 1369. 1369 is 37 squared. And if you create this, it's technically a square number. A square number and a rhombic number are exactly the same. Rhombic numbers are just square numbers on tilt, is what I like to say. But when God hovered on the surface of the waters, the word moved upon is merachafet, and it means to disturb, to move, or to brood. And one of the definitions I got for the English word brood is a chick, landing on its nest, or to keep its eggs warm. Sorry about that. And that's exactly how the word is used in the book of Deuteronomy. Let me pull my note up. Sorry about that. Stuff's not cooperating. As a eagle stirreth up her nest, and fluttereth over her young, and spreadeth abroad her wings, and taketh them, and beareth them on her wings. So yeah, fluttereth over her young. The word fluttereth should be this word, rakafet. I'm not saying it right, but rakafet is basically... Sorry, I like to use the exact spellings from the text, but it ends up making it a little confusing. I should probably stick to the absolute spellings. But I don't know. I'm always using the Gematria value from the text itself. That's why I like to use the form of the words from the text themselves. I don't like just citing the absolute value. If anybody wants to give me some feedback on what would be better, I'd listen. But that's what's going on. But the idea is to disturb, if a bird was about to land on you, like an airplane flying over you creates all of that wind. Well, so when God's hovering over the surface of the water, he's disturbing the waters. And that's what I'm showing you here on the right side of this picture, is an interference pattern on the waters. And when you create two simultaneous mirror patterns, well, why would you do that? Well, God's staring into his reflection. So you got two images, right? So, and if you start making two dots at the same time in the water, where two ripples start spreading out, you'll get a standard interference pattern, and the vesica portion of those two expanding circles creates triangle numbers. This blew me away because I was already making rhombic triangle numbers and depicting it like in the vesica. So when I realized, like, oh cow, holy cow, this is interference patterns made in this shape, make triangular numbers. And that's how I make them. I'll make one vesica and then I just start reflecting the dots, is what I do. But so when God's hovering on the surface of the waters to create our world, and the beginning of that is 1, 2, 3, because the beginning of everything is 1, 2, 3, right? It has to have a beginning, middle, and end. Every single thing in existence in every moment has a beginning, middle, and end. Yeah. And it's infinitely paused. Well, what's in the middle of that? Well, what's in the middle of that? Well, what's in the middle of that? Right? And the prime scale of power is kind of making you think that way. But anyways. But so on one side of the waters of chaos is this 2701 triangle forming, and it reflects this 3-7 nature of God. And then you get the creation week where God's creating boundaries on the water, and that's basically reflecting this space for life to exist in the primordial sea. It is the ark. And and then you have the Garden of Eden account, and then the account of Cain and Abel, which is the two types of priests. I have a presentation ready to go on that. It's hard for my heart to deal with some of that material. It's pretty rough, but the human garden's fully expressed, and the satanic priest and the priest that's like Christ are both expressed in that story very specifically, and there's nowhere to hide from the information that's there. But nonetheless, they represent the two types of priests, and Adam and Eve were the precursors, and Yahweh and Nakash are before them, and that's a reflection of light and dark. Nakash was the evil sorcerer. Anyways. I don't want to get too much into that. I'm trying to describe the primordial vision. And the sons of God married the daughters of men. I know everybody wants to talk about giants and fallen angels, but the daughters of men, the context supplies Cain being cast out like a bastard and then having his own lineage. He's not in the lineage of the sons of God in Genesis 4. He has his own. I might have said that backwards, but anyways, he has his own lineage and it's separate. Those are the daughters of men, and the sons of God would be the sons of Adam, Seth, Enos, Cain, and Mahalalel. They saw that the daughters of men were fair and they intermarried. That's what the verse is saying. They became tyrannical and everybody oppressed each other and everybody wanted to enslave each other, just like they do today. And it's a nightmare today. This stuff's so out of control with these people thinking they deserve to run a human garden. Y'all people make me sick. This is the most exposed y'all have ever been. Oh, I think y'all messed up, not hiding, but maybe this is the grand purification. Let's have it out, but it's going down between the landlords and those lorded over. It's going down, and this book is all about it. But this book is starting that shit, though. Anyways, but so, and then God floods the whole earth because everybody's terrible, just like everybody deserves to die right now. How many people are like, I wish they would die, about somebody? Like, man, the world's so full of hate, y'all. Y'all have no idea what I've been through and how much I've been hurt by this world. But it don't matter. All that I really care about now is this word. And God made me understand all this stuff. But so God destroys the world because everybody's evil, just like they are today. And then the last verse of the flood, Genesis 8:14, and in the second month, on the 7th and 20th day of the month, was the earth dried. And if you add up those words, which is 8 words, if you add those 8 words up, it equals 2,701. So here you have this most amazing triangular number, which, the odds of it occurring were like in the millions to 1 in the first verse of Genesis. And then you get it one more time here they did it on purpose without a doubt. Like, this is here on purpose. Whether God made them do it or the sorcerers just did it because this is sorcery. Either God's the sorcerer making baby sorcerers, or sorcerers are making a god, which is what the Kabbalists will teach you, is that this is the art of creating a god, which this is all about government. Before y'all start freaking out, this is about creating a government. God is the source of power, which is authority. It's the power to rule everything. And it's sort of channeled into the order of this number. And they're telling you that without this order, this math genius sorcerer order, like, the world will dissolve into chaos. I'd like to talk about these spells more directly, but no, nobody's telling on themselves. Anyways, sorry, y'all. This stuff means a lot to me. But so you have the primordial waters of chaos, and the first verse of Genesis is this order being made out of it. The 5 words that are the 666 times 3, and then the 703 right here, which is the house of the Lord, which is the 3-7. And then he puts the waters of chaos into this primordial vision, and you can create a government and space for a government, but when everybody turns bad, you're going to have to kill them all. And then God hung his war bow in the cloud. And on both sides of this triangle is this primordial vision with the power of the water of chaos. And so on one side of this gate, of this triangle, it represents a gate. And on one side of it is the primordial sea, where everything's one in potential. And the other side of it is an order where life exists. And this is the only place where life can exist, in this void of chaos. That's what this stuff is talking about, y'all. And so, and so everybody that died in the flood, those are the demons that you can summon. And you can draw them forth from the abyss because they were put there, And I'll read to you Job 26, which I love this verse here. To whom hast thou uttered words, and whose spirit came from thee? Like, Job is answering his friends. I hope I'm telling y'all that right. But it's in the midst of the Job going back and forth with his friends. And he's saying, which one of y'all have given a man his spirit, has brought down, the spirit substance from heaven and given it to a man? None of y'all have done that. Job's being facetious. And then he compares that to the ghost, Rapha, spiral, circularly. The word spiral means to circulate under the waters in their tabernacle, which I believe these are the stars circling around the sky. But at least that's what they are referring to, this spiraling undulation. They use the same terminology for the spirits in the underworld that they would for the stars in the sky, at the very least. And there's definitely a huge connection between the primordial waters and looking into outer space and seeing the sky. But, I've been trying to learn more about that the whole time. 37 years now. Funny, huh? I've been studying the Bible since I was 7. It's been 37 years. It's pretty cool. But nonetheless, so the underworld is naked before God, and the destroyer, Abaddon, hath no covering. So God can see into these waters, just like it describes him looking into the waters from his house. And this is what he's seeing. And he sees the great destroyer, the spirit of Abaddon. And he spreads out the north over the primeval waters, which the north, where all the stars circle around the North Star, which that was different when this verse was written than it is today. You have to learn about precession to know what I'm talking about. And he hangeth the earth upon nothing. Ooh. And he bindeth up the waters with his thick cloud, and the cloud is not rent under them. He encloseth the face of his throne, and spreadeth his cloud over it. He hath compassed, which means to encircle the waters with bounds, until the day and night come to an end. When did he do that? On the first and second day of Genesis. And he hath the pillars of heaven tremble. That's a word. Tremble, that means to triturate, like a grindstone when you're like pressing oil out of seeds or something like that. I'm not real old worldly, so I gotta look it up. But yeah, it means to triturate a grindstone. And they're astonished at his reproof. He divideth the sea with his power, and by his supreme skill he strikes the sea serpent. By his spirit he has enlightened the heavens, and his hand hath coiled the serpent, which is wrapped around the North Star. And that's encircled by the path of the North Pole. The path of the North Pole, because the Earth wobbles, it has a wobble to it. It makes a circle around the constellation Draco. So the serpent is bound in the circle in the sky. And God knows about it because it takes 25,000 years to reveal itself. And so only the people who've been writing down what they know and then retaining it for their ancestors are going to be able to discover this. But so that's God looking into the waters, conjuring our world, from his house, so to speak. And man, and so when you think and have a thought, it's an image in your mind. It's light in the water, and that light has to come from a place, and they're saying it's coming from a void where everything is one. And to draw on that power and to bring it from the infinite void into our reality is part of how God manifests. And it's part of how he casts the God spell. And depending on how you draw energy from that place and use it, you're going to make the world good or evil. You're going to make it more good or more evil. And good for you might be more evil for somebody else. But and then good for God is going to be way different than that. But, try to have some sound judgment when you're discerning all of this stuff. But I don't know. I get excited about it, and I love this stuff. What you're supposed to draw from this is the power of order, and it's basically like if you figure out how to count, then you're obligated. Then this spirit's trying to talk to you and obligating you to create, a measure and a rule that's true. And, people have taken it as far as this wacky shit we're seeing on the news with these two parties, this right and left-handed party. Where do you think they got that from? It comes from this. Because of the triangle is where you draw power into existence, and it comes from a source, and it becomes a triangle with the right and a left hand. So, so Israel's in the middle, and they got Christianity to be the right or the left hand, and Islam to be the other. And it's actually like that on the map. You got Arabia on one side, Europe on the other, and those are the two hands of the scale with Israel in the middle. And I believe they built the religion to work this way. They know that the religions work this way, and they use them this way. The rabbis use them this way. You can hear the rabbis talking all about this stuff. I've heard rabbis saying, oh, well, we'll just use Islam to clean them up. I'm like, yeah, that's what the book's telling you to do. It's telling you to divide power into a right and left hand, and then just do whatever it takes to keep power where you want it. And you can just shift to one hand and then make them right and left-handed, and anywhere you have a power struggle, you just split it in half, divide it, and start manipulating both sides, and, And the whole book from Adam and Eve on is a guide on how to work with power, and somebody's got to do it. I'm not ready to talk about Christianity and Satanism and government. But I'm hinting at a lot of stuff right here, but I want to really spell out what happens in the Garden of Eden first, before I get into it. But if you take the first verse of John, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and everything that was made by the Word. If you take the first verse of John, gosh, I hope I'm not telling y'all this wrong. It's hard to do this stuff with the notes. But here, I'm showing y'all a slide, and it's got the first verse of Genesis, and it's calculated to equal 2,701. If you take the first verse of John and add up all the words of John 1:1, it equals 3,627 units. And if you add 3,627 units 2,701 to the first verse of Genesis, combine the absolute value of both, you get another perfect number. You get another perfect triangular number. You get the 112th triangular number of 6,328 units. I mean, so this is telling you that whoever wrote the Gospel of John knew that Genesis was a triangular number. Like, they knew it was 2,701. They knew the exact value, and they made a perfect value out of the words of the first verse to correspond with it, to graft it in together to make a larger and perfect form. And so you can see, like, it's this slide's hard to see, but you can still see if you zoom in on it. You can see every unit. I built the whole thing. It was really hard to do. But so triangular numbers, every third triangular number after 1, so 1, 4, 7, and on, nest a hexagon in the center. And so the 112th triangular number nests the hexagon in the center. And when you do that, it's so amazing. If you divide the center lines of the hexagon, which is necessary to see this form emerge, it divides the central hexagon into 6 of triangular number 36 of 666 units. Which is absolutely amazing. And then on each side of 3 of those, you have this 37th triangular number. And so this is like the house of God surrounding the primordial waters of chaos and holding it in, like in a scrying pool, which is, it's your skull, and the house of the Lord's going to surround you, and it's going to push the waters of chaos into order. That's what this represents. And the center lines, that are necessary to divide it this way, they equal 223 units. And 2 plus 2 plus 3 is 7. So it represents the 7 ordered of the body, putting the waters of chaos, bring in the temple, the 703 temple, into, I think it's the picture of the, God's kingdom fully subduing the powers of chaos, which is like taking over the earth. And I think that these people are like at the top of the Zionists, at the top of the bankers, the top of the Freemasons. I think they all know what the Bible is. That's the big secret they've been keeping. Is that they understand what this stuff is, if the Kabbalists are telling you that the Torah is a manual to create a God, in the beginning created gods, they're like, that word order is intentional, is what they'll tell you. Oh yeah, well, it's actually intentional, and it's because it's telling us to create a God. Like, whoever made the gospel seems like they knew that, and that they were adhering to the procedure, does it not? Anyways, man, I should have looked at my time. I did want to stop. Well, I say these things out of a love of life and a love for others. I don't want people to get mad at the Jews. I want people to be honest about power and about corruption and about how they've corrupted themselves and allowed themselves to be exploited to the point to where these people can overtake us like this, and then to value their lives enough to say no and to stand up and say, hey, no more exploitation. Humans can't be humans without having a place to belong that can't be taken from them. You don't have a whole body unless you have a piece of land that can't be taken from you, y'all. Just to let you know, you're all a bunch of eunuchs if you don't own land that you belong to. You're exploitable. You're 100% a slave. If you got to pay rent, you're a slave. Good day.